returned home late, heavily intoxicated, following an excessive bachelor party. Upon ringing the bell, chaos ensued. This incident, unbelievable as it may seem, marked a significant turning point in my life. Greetings, Redditors. I am Lane 77, a divorced man without children. Age is irrelevant to this story. In one reckless night, not only did I shatter my marriage, but also damaged my family and social life beyond repair. It was that particular evening when everything began spiraling out of control. My car, seemingly vanished without a trace, was nowhere to be found where I had parked it. Alarmed, I made calls to inquire about the fate of my vehicle post-party. Given the recent occurrence, I couldn't help but doubt the possibility that something catastrophic happened to a car secured within a compound. However, I soon remembered something odd and checked my purse, only to discover that the car key was missing, yet I had no recollection of losing it as I hadn't taken them out the previous night. In a state of distress, I feared the consequences if my husband, Zane, discovered that I had misplaced the car he gave me following our wedding. Yet, I didn't want to deceive him, so I chose to call him and confess. Thankfully, he was understanding, which meant less blame if I admitted it rather than him discovering it on his own. As I nervously talked to him, I struggled to hide my anxiety, but he just chuckled at the other end of the line. Perplexed, I asked why he was laughing, and he revealed that he had left home earlier to take the car to a mechanic for some repairs, explaining why I couldn't find it where I left it the previous night. This revelation brought a sigh of relief from me, causing Zane to laugh even more. The truth was, I had actually been searching for my car because I had gone to a party, and you might be wondering what a married woman would be doing at a party. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. Originally invited to an atypical bachelor party, unlike the usual VIP lounge rentals or strip club visits, this one took place in a friend's mansion with both males and females present. Assured my husband I'd return home before it became too late or dark, calling him for pickup if necessary. Given to drink, prone to tears and passing out, I aimed to depart before becoming too intoxicated. Unexpectedly, the night extended longer than anticipated. Initially, I hadn't intended to linger at the residence for long, yet hours slipped away unnoticed. Before I realized it, past midnight had passed, and I found myself engaged in some juvenile party games, even overindulging in alcohol to the point where my eyes began to ache. Recognizing the need to depart, I sought out the hosts of the event, who were acquainted friends, and bade them adieu. Melody, an old friend, protested and implored me to remain, but I merely chuckled and explained that I had obligations elsewhere, which she eventually accepted and released her grip on my arm, enabling me to exit the house and embark on my journey home. I informed my companion of the plan to summon Zane to retrieve me, thus necessitating a departure from the premises to make the call. Despite persistent attempts, Zane remained unreachable, causing some anxiety within me. However, realizing that driving was no longer an option, I decided either to hail a cab or phone a designated driver. Instead of relying on the designated driver, I contemplated he might endanger me, so I opted for a taxi ride home instead. Upon arrival, I walked near my driveway, fumbling with my keys to unlock the door. Despite fitting in the keyhole, the lock refused to turn, prompting me to explore around the side of the door for the doorbell. After ringing it repeatedly, believing it was amusing to push the button due to my intoxicated state, a visibly irritated and indescribably emotional man appeared to open the door. I attempted to sober up quickly, though my condition made for an odd spectacle, drunk and trying to maintain balance in the heels I wore upon leaving home. Seeing my husband's face, I straightened myself as much as possible. He merely raised an eyebrow and folded his arms across his chest before leaning against the doorway to scrutinize me further. Under his scrutinizing stare, we engaged in a protracted eye contact game, a contest I swiftly forfeited due to the unbearable chill emanating from his eyes. The tension was finally broken by an irate sigh from Zane, followed by harsh words that left me reeling. Zane commanded me to return to where I had originated, causing my eyes to widen and my head to shake rapidly in confusion. He claimed he was jesting, stating that I should retreat before further mortifying him. Despite my fear, the smile Zane bestowed on me eased my apprehension. He even offered his arm for support as he guided me into the house to prevent a potential fall, assisting me up each stair and maintaining my balance until we reached our room. Upon entering our room, I almost collapsed due to relief, causing my knees to buckle, prompting another laugh from Zane before he helped me remove my heels as I sat on the floor. I expressed gratitude as I felt awkward, averting my gaze towards the side whilst he attended to my ankles and worked simultaneously. He arranged a bath for me, suggesting I should enter whilst he prepared the bed so we could retire. Overwhelmed by exhaustion, I didn't perceive anything else my spouse did after his return from the bathroom and instructing me to bathe. Even the collection of my clothes on the floor, along with the shoes, escaped my notice. All I recall is my head meeting soft pillows before drifting into a dreamless slumber. I awoke rather late the next morning, but chose not to worry about it since it was Saturday, and I could easily decide to sleep in further. Yet, I knew I couldn't and rose swiftly, grappling with a migraine-like hangover that threatened to fracture my skull. I grappled to extricate myself from bed and swallowed water mixed with aspirin that Zane undoubtedly left on the nightstand for me. After completing my morning rituals in the bathroom, I departed the house. I had to retrieve my vehicle from where I'd parked it at my friend's house. Upon waking, my husband was nowhere to be found, only a brief note on the kitchen counter with sandwiches resting on a plate. The message indicated his father had summoned him, necessitating an early departure for morning duties, and I merely acknowledged the missive before tucking it away in the drawers where I usually stored his miscellaneous notes. 2 weeks had passed without a sighting of my car, and Zane was no longer disclosing any information, neither about the vehicle nor the auto shop to which he had transported the vehicle. Uninformed, I found myself in a predicament, either reliant on him for a ride to work or opting for taxis if Zane was unavailable or overly occupied. I'd been inquiring about my car from Zane, seeking an update on its return, but his responses were vague, often mentioning later contacting mechanics or calling the shop for information regarding the vehicle and its servicing. Knowing Zane's temperament and my tendency to annoy him with persistence, I held back unnecessary remarks and stopped asking about the car. I expected a definitive answer when he was ready to discuss it. A week after my last inquiry about the car, Zane stopped eating my food. He either claimed not to be hungry or lacked the mood for what I'd prepared. Consequently, I ended up dining and having breakfast alone every day. I couldn't tell if he was ill or experiencing some other issue since I didn't notice any signs of sickness, and he didn't appear worn out as usual when exhausted. Instead, he seemed unusually distant towards me. Uncertain and unsure of my actions, I phoned his elder sister. Upon answering, she inquired as to the caller's identity, leaving me speechless for a moment. Despite frequently conversing with Zane's sister, I found myself at a loss. She knew my number, yet here she was, asking for identification over the phone. Regaining my composure, I disclosed that it was indeed me on the line. I revealed my name, and her voice grew icy as she inquired about the purpose of my call. Brusque and curt, her tone set my anger ablaze, but I suppressed it, recalling her seniority to myself. Maintaining a calm and courteous demeanor, I expressed my concern that her brother was no longer eating at home. She questioned whether it was appropriate for me to be informed about her brother's affairs and why I would seek information from her. I responded, expressing my worry for him and inquiring if perhaps he had discussed my condition with her. My sister-in-law then became aggressive, questioning whether it was appropriate for me to know about his private conversations with family and why I would be interested in his activities during leisure time. This was the first time I had heard such anger from her over the phone, as she loudly scolded me. Immediately, I expressed my deepest apologies, feeling tears swell in my eyes, to which she replied that I would have nothing to apologize for if I learned to respect boundaries and avoid unnecessary calls. She hinted that I should not call her again about trivial matters and promptly ended the call, slamming the phone down forcefully as she hung up, leaving the line silent. The situation continued in this manner. Zane hardly found time for me any longer, and instead of occasionally skipping our dinner dates, he began flatly refusing my culinary offerings, claiming they didn't suit his taste at the moment. The dishwasher overflowed with an unusual number of pots and pans within a day, and the refrigerator was filled with more leftovers, each in labeled plastic containers, some marked Zane, and I was explicitly warned not to touch them. We shared a bed, but the intimacy we once felt was gone. It seemed as if an impassable chasm had grown between us, with neither of us making any effort to bridge it. Zane appeared content in this state, even fostering it. It was on a night out with my friends Melody, Tasha, and two others that I finally broke down after several rounds of shots and drinks. I sobbed, expressing my distress about my situation with Zane, leaning on Melody's shoulder while I cried. Naturally, Melody consoled me, patting my back and hushing me softly with comforting words and playful teasing. My other friends echoed her efforts to comfort me, but from the corner of my eye, I spotted Tasha roll hers in annoyance. This was followed by a disapproving click of her tongue, and she asked if I was so immature as to cry over such a trivial matter as a man ignoring me. Glancing at her, I angrily replied that the man involved was actually my lawfully married husband. Tasha scoffed again in anger. Although I had raised my voice in response to her words, she merely chuckled lightly and suggested that the solution to my problem was as simple as joining the girls for a night out and having drinks. This left me baffled, and Tasha's disapproving look conveyed her lack of impression. I inquired about her conversation, and she chuckled, suggesting I could casually trap him at home and coax information out of him regarding his issues. This idea resonated strongly in my intoxicated state, altering my demeanor as my spirits lifted once more, prompting another round of drinks. However, I neglected the concerned expressions from Tasha and Melody, specifically Melody's expression of worry and apprehension, but Tasha's was inscrutable. I should have heeded the alarm bells ringing in my head, but I was too intoxicated and elated to pay attention to them, so I returned to our jovial banter and festivities that lasted deep into the night. It was a weekend, after all. My rings vanished a month later. One was a delicate silver band adorned with a stunning diamond, while the other was a simple silver band encased in a layer of silver. These highly meaningful rings mysteriously disappeared. My engagement ring and wedding band, with their elaborate designs, were missing. I assumed something valuable was lost. Typically, I remove these rings while washing dishes, and my husband had left the house by the time I finished my task. Other pieces of jewelry also vanished mysteriously. As I recall, Zane entered the house for a moment when I was in the kitchen, called out to me, and glanced at me oddly as I washed dishes, offering a faint smile that wasn't reciprocated. However, due to Melody's advice to view such occurrences as mere phases, I didn't give his strange behavior much thought. Later, my rings disappeared without a trace, and I couldn't blame Zane for their loss since he had no motive to take the bands that he himself had given me. The car I'd driven, now registered as empty in my mind, led me to believe I had misplaced my ring. Consequently, I arranged to have my wedding band recast. Its design and texture were familiar, and I possessed mental images of the ring, making its recreation feasible. A week post-loss, a week later, Zane departed our residence. He chose to move out, a decision made a week after I lost the rings and had them remade. One Tuesday evening, following his work shift, I inquired about his plans for the future. He responded that he was visiting his family's house. Skeptical, I pointed out his large suitcase filled with work attire and formal shoes. My observation was met with a growl from Zane, and he grew defensive when I questioned his intentions. When I inquired about the length of his stay, he asserted it was none of my concern if he extended his visit beyond the weekend at his family's house. He declared that since I was so eager to learn about his whereabouts, he'd remain there for the coming week, giving me free rein over the house. He shoved past me, causing me to lose my footing, but not enough to make me fall. As he drove away, he suggested I could bring in a new partner if I wished, and those words wounded me more than the mild ache in my shoulder from his blow. I was puzzled by this statement, unsure why he would say such things to me. I felt an urge to chase after him and demand explanations, but knowing Zane's temperament, I expected no answers and only potential hostility. Instead, I chose to discuss his peculiar behavior with his closest friend within our group of friends, none other than Andy, a former schoolmate of his who was also acquainted with me from my hometown. Andy didn't take kindly to my unexpected call for information about Zane, evident by his tone when he answered. He sounded annoyed and displeased at hearing my voice, abruptly asking me to get to the point so he could continue with his day. My response was almost as terse, apologizing while assuring him I wouldn't waste his time. All I required was a perspective from someone close to Zane, but not family, regarding his unusual demeanor. I sought an outsider's perspective on his recent attitude change. Andy merely sighed and inquired what made me think he would provide the answers I needed. There was an undercurrent of rudeness in his tone that I struggled to suppress. My in-laws had already been rude to me, and I didn't appreciate being treated so brusquely by someone I consider a childhood friend. I expressed my discontent toward Andy, who responded with a sigh and an apology, stating his inability to connect with me had forced him to behave rudely. I confessed my confusion, prompting him merely to instruct me to investigate our friend group chat for possible explanations. The call ended abruptly, leaving me without the chance to probe further. Andy did not answer any subsequent calls, not even the following day. As I was seldom active in the group chat, I failed to comprehend Andy's intentions. However, my frustration persisted at having to check a collective chat to discern issues concerning my husband instead of him disclosing them directly, especially considering we cohabited until he seemed to be fleeing from me. Upon re-entering the group chat, a flurry of messages overwhelmed me, leaving me unable to keep up. However, Tasha's message tagging my profile as shameful swiftly caught my attention and disappeared just as quickly. Additional messages followed, but a video was soon tagged and passed by, which I had missed earlier. I promptly marked the message for later viewing. The influx of messages persisted until I was abruptly kicked from the group, seemingly expelled from it entirely. At this point, I could no longer respond to any messages. Upon checking the date, I saw that I had been removed from the group chat about a week prior, and due to my prolonged absence, I could still see previous messages. This sudden kickoff surprised me, but I chose to postpone questioning it for now as I needed to address something more urgent. Instead, I decided to scroll through the messages before I was removed from the group. Approximately 2 months ago, I encountered old messages. They aligned with the period when Zane began acting strangely at home. As I perused them, I came across some unsettling messages that suggested me as an evil person and others berating Melody for defending me. The group threatened to expel her if she continued to defend me, which made Melody fall silent while the rest of the group continued sending messages. Eventually, I saw a message from Zane suggesting a discussion once the topic of contention, the root cause, was expelled from the group first. The messages contained elaborate plans for Zane to leave the country and possibly seek new opportunities. Confusing messages like these persisted until my removal from the group. Despite my attempts to decipher mysterious messages, my phone rang, a persistent call from Melody, whom I initially intended to ignore due to my unfavorable mood and disposition towards speaking to anyone, let alone one of my friends seemingly involved in my husband's recent conduct. However, Melody proved resolute, relentlessly calling back, even after I had missed her call and ignored it. In the end, I opted to oblige her persistence since I could always return to my previous tasks post-call. My friend Melody appeared frantic on the phone as I answered, her words barely discernible due to her panicked mumbling and screams. I asked her to compose herself and speak clearly. Melody informed me that she was about to send a text message with an attached video, urging me to watch it promptly once received. She advised against yelling or hasty actions, suggesting I immediately call her back after watching the video first. I complied, hanging up for reading and viewing. The camera swayed slightly as it readjusted its position. Familiar figures appeared, then the camera spun rapidly to focus on a group of people in a circle, loudly chanting and laughing, while holding glasses of champagne, vodka, and beer bottles. The cameraman advanced through the throng, switching on a flashlight to illuminate the dimly lit room's scene. In the center of the circle was a man with a woman on his lap, who wore a familiar baby blue, flared ankle-length gown with a thigh-high slit and sparkly block-heeled strappy shoes. Her hair was styled in a simple side sweep, and she donned silver hoop earrings. I was the woman, my lips on his, a familiar dress adorning me. It was the same one worn at Melody's bachelorette party. I was in a precarious position, teetering on the edge of a panic attack, trying to control the shakes in my hands and body to dial Melody once more. The video flashed before my eyes, the one from our group chat, the one labeled as my shameless act by Tasha and left by Zane. I had seen it. I had responded after some days. Overwhelmed, I was quivering from head to toe, barely registering Melody's screams over the phone for me to calm down. It wasn't until a minute of staring at the floor that I realized my vision was fading and my thighs where damp tears had fallen. I wept on the couch, immobilized, eventually ending the call to collapse onto the floor, curling into a ball and continuing to cry loudly until I fell asleep, mostly due to fatigue. I awoke to my phone ringing repeatedly with calls from Melody and concerned text messages. Drowsy, I replied that I was fine and we would meet later for a chat, then rose to prepare for work. I attempted to reach Zane, but he either ignored or rejected my calls, stating there was nothing left to discuss. I also tried to visit him, but he refused my presence, and his older sister verbally abused me, calling me names and striking me, ordering me never to return or seek him out again as he had requested. I departed the compound in tears, sobbing in the back of a taxi on my way home. I was trying to comprehend when Zane phoned, explaining he'd texted and requested a callback once I'd read it. The video's replay stirred emotions within me again, but I composed myself to call him back. He inquired about the video, if I found it appealing, to which I nervously replied that I didn't. Zane chuckled at my response, wondering why I wouldn't admit enjoying it. Zane urged me not to deny anything, suggesting that my actions in the video indicated otherwise. I tried to respond, but he cut me off, stating that he would be doing the talking while I simply listened. He informed me that he was giving me freedom to act as I wished and move on with whoever I desired without limitations or obstacles, as he too would be free to do the same. Since the bachelor party, he'd been aware of the video and his decision was firm, rendering my actions ineffective. Zane spoke decisively before ending the call, leaving me teary-eyed with no response. All attempts to reconnect with him were futile as he ignored calls, refused to meet, and gave no opportunity for an explanation. I was left waiting for his discretion to grant us a conversation. A month later, in my office, we met again. He carried a sizable brown envelope saying it was meant for me. He abruptly placed the envelope on my desk, urging me to swiftly sign the papers inside. The impending situation was expected, but the swiftness caught me off guard. The papers were indeed divorce documents. After our argument about the distasteful video, I attempted to plead and clarify myself, but he refused to listen and decided to move forward with the divorce because he doubted I wouldn't become embroiled in a more significant problem or scandal, given what had occurred at the party. Zane was technically divorced in his mind, as he no longer looked at me as a wife, treated me as such, and we were essentially roommates, with him merely waiting to finalize the divorce papers so we could both sign and legally dissolve our marriage. It's not like he was kissing a stranger. I was blatantly embracing the man in the video. Despite my attempts to tell Zane that I was too drunk to comprehend what transpired, he chose to ignore me. He had made up his mind about me, and I was left with no other choice but to gather my belongings. I implored Zane to grant me a brief respite to organize myself before signing the papers without any objections whatsoever, and he scornfully raised an eyebrow at my plea, yet still yielded, dismissing me as he departed from my office. Remarkably courteous about the situation, but I was fully aware that it was merely because he wished to avoid any awkward or shameful incidents associated with him. Thus his visit to the office was discreet, and he didn't explode in anger as he commanded me to sign the papers. He was enraged, beyond furious indeed. As I departed my office, headed home, or so I thought, it lacked the usual comfort since Zane was temporarily residing at his sister's place. For the past 3 months, I had resided there following our confrontation, and discussing the despicable video led to him lashing out, physically dragging me to our once blessed, soundproofed shared room, where he proceeded to verbally attack me, hurling insults ranging from horrific to using other explicit terms to describe me. He asserted that a cheater had no right to question his faithfulness towards me, which began before we were even wed. His words struck a raw nerve and left me utterly speechless in his presence. Zane was adept at concealing his emotions and reactions so effectively that he only revealed what one desired to see. However, I knew him well enough, but not well enough apparently, because as soon as the papers were placed in his hands, he immediately commanded my immediate departure from the house. I was taken aback by this sudden turn of events. Zane stated that all events had culminated in that precise instant, the instance when you depart from his residence, and I could sense my eyes and cheeks growing moist. I was weeping. Zane merely sighed and queried if witches cried under any other circumstances besides the bedroom, and I gasped, struggling with a sob, as I asked for clarification in another voice coming from upstairs. A breathless voice responded for Zane from above. It was Zane's elder sister pushing a sizable suitcase down the stairs, gasping for air before surrendering, throwing the box down the stairs out of frustration. Zane chuckled at his sister when she grumbled that it was unclear how a woman not serious about marriage could possess so much property in the home of a man she had no plans to stay with. The siblings chuckled mutually over a jest at my expense, leaving me bewildered as they reveled in my misfortune. Despite my reluctance to provide them with a gratification of watching me crumble, it was an inevitable reaction. I collapsed on the spot and sobbed like a child, while the siblings derided me and labeled my tears as phony, then walked away. Zane halted his steps and commanded me to vacate the house immediately, whether by evening or straight away if possible. He also suggested that I leave the remaining garments in the closet, except for those in the suitcase that his sister had hauled downstairs. There was no need for me to pack them too, as it was Zane himself who had procured those clothes for me. Zane looked at me with contempt and ordered me to discard the clothes or burn them, rather than let me take them along, since I wouldn't be taking the rings in the vehicle either. I swiftly changed direction, encountering Zane with a sorrowful gaze before he sighed, turned away, and departed the house to join his sister in the car. The disappearance of the rings was due to Zane, not misplacement or automobile repair. Zane had taken back every gift he'd ever given me during our marriage. That was his chosen retaliation for my actions. My tears refused to abate, and I could not suppress the urge to crumple the brown envelope in my hands, kick my legs out, and sit on the floor, tugging at my hair like a grief-stricken woman. Indeed, I was mourning. I had sunk beyond mere despair. New insight. The video was recorded by Tasha, the chief bridesmaid of my friend, the same friend who organized the bachelor party that ignited the turmoil. Tasha, as the chief bridesmaid, was responsible for the footage, making her the guilty party, given the camera angle in the recording. For a considerable time, Tasha harbored interest in Zane, and the party seemed like an opportune moment to disrupt Zane and my relationship. Her intention was to sabotage my marriage, portraying me as an unfaithful woman while projecting herself as an immaculate angel. My friend Melody disclosed that it was indeed Tasha who proposed the inebriated game of truth or dare, and she was the one I trusted implicitly, even accepting numerous shots from her until I was far beyond sober. Melody had informed me that she and her husband had left earlier, which could have prevented Tasha's actions if they hadn't. Regrettably, Tasha was the one who anonymously sent the video to my spouse, and since she held a professional position alongside Zane, she continued to make advances towards him after the video transmission. Tasha admitted to Melody that she was responsible for everything, expressing remorsefully that Zane was aware of her affection and yet rejected her even after our divorce. In a direct conversation with me, Tasha stated that in another context, she would have arranged for men to sleep with her and record it, making it appear as an affair, consequently causing my husband to do more than just divorce me. Astonished by the revelation from someone I considered a friend, I found myself reassessing my friendship-making approach. Though I was relieved to discover I had been set up, It didn't alter the fact that I was culpable not just in Zane's eyes, but also my own. My intoxication could not absolve me of kissing another man and allowing him to grope me at a gathering filled with acquaintances, despite the general carefree atmosphere. As a married woman, this transgression was unacceptable, even if I did enjoy the kiss. Zane refused to entertain my explanation and declared that his decision was final, asserting he didn't desire a reckless woman as his wife under any circumstances. Realizing I cannot reverse what has happened, I grieve the loss of the man I loved due to my poor judgment in consuming alcohol excessively. Let this serve as a cautionary tale about trust and companionship. Be mindful who you call your friends. Despite my self-blame, it's still my fault.